So hello and welcome to part 1.5 of the complete beta map of Bully. Today's episode we're going to be focusing on Bullworth Academy again, but in the last part we did focus on the school, the basement and the dorms. Well, for this part we're going to focus on the surrounding areas, you know, like the library, the gym and all that, so yeah, let's get on with it. So let's go over to the library now, because inside the library there is a blocked off secret area you can still sort of see. So when you go into the library, go upstairs and pay very close attention to this specific bookcase because you may notice there's a missing wall behind it. Now some of you might be thinking, what about it, it's probably just a misplaced prop or something. Well, that's actually because if you remove this wall by modding, it's actually part of a destroyed wall that was going to lead you to a secret library area, referred to in the files as Library 2. Which I would assume would be another nerd type hideout. This broken wall is all that remains, and if I had to assume it would probably be opened during chapter 4. It was probably removed because there is either not much need for a third nerd hideout because you have the Observatory and the comic book store, or because it wouldn't make any sense if Jimmy was opening the bookcase by himself during the day when everyone was in the library, or if the area was just open for all to see. Or maybe originally this is where chapter 4 was going to take place before it moved to the Observatory to make things a bit better, story-wise, I don't know. But it's still interesting to think about nonetheless. So let's go over to Harrington House now, because Harrington House is a very odd area. Because first of all, despite the fact this interior is blocked off, there is a bug that lets you explore it whenever you want, without mods. And that can be done if you beat the mission Weed Killer before Jimmy gets expelled in chapter 5, and then just defeat Gary Smith normally. If you don't beat Weed Killer before Jimmy's expulsion, Harrington House will remain locked off permanently. It's likely Harrington House was never intended to be explorable, because if you actually do perform this bug, and enter the building, you'll find there's absolutely nobody that spawns in here if you do gain access. Unlike the gym and the library, preps are nowhere to be found indoors. But once again, there is a hell of a lot of cooked content in this place. So first of all, the reception room you spawn in was supposed to have some chocolates that spawned on the desk, which seems weird for a place you're never supposed to visit. And that's not really a good beta change, is it? So let's get on to some of the more really interesting stuff. So if you look on the radar of Harrington House, you'll notice there's a radar for a room that's blocked off by a door, which if you open via no clipping or something, is entirely empty, and is also blocked off by an invisible wall. Which, okay, it might belong to the room directly above, but no, the same also applies here. There's an empty room despite the radar clearly saying there is a room located here. Also behind these doors in Harrington House, while they are empty, is collision for the floor, so I wonder if this means these rooms were going to be enterable at some point. However, the room upstairs has no collision whatsoever, so I don't know if that means the original radar was only focusing on the ground floor, or what, but yeah. Now unsurprisingly, the blocked off staircase can be opened and walked through without any issues whatsoever. It's unknown why Rockstar kept the staircase closed permanently since it knocks off about 10 or 20 seconds when going up and down Harrington House anyway. So there is also an unused version of the Crapula Maxima flytrap, which heavily hints the original idea for the mission was to completely destroy the plant, not just poison it and run off. So let's get on to our biggest changes of the Bullworth Academy area with Harrington House's balcony. Because when you head up here you'll realise the entire area is surrounded by a massive forest. Which is interesting because outside the interior is the way to Earnest Observatory, which lies directly behind it. And that is nowhere near as foresty as this. In fact, there's barely any trees at all on the actual path, so I wouldn't be surprised if Rockstar did want to make the surrounding areas a bit more forest-like, but couldn't do that due to PS2 limitations or a design change which I never bothered updating Harrington House for. Also on the walls of Harrington House there was going to be a polo mallet. It's unknown if this was going to be a prop or if it was going to be another weapon Jimmy could equip here, seeing as he can use cricket bats, brooms and baseball bats as weapons as well. Also, you know the area by the fountain? Well, Harrington House was going to have its gate locking the player out, meaning they would have to take the route via the library if they wanted access initially. It's unknown if this was a temporary thing which would get removed at some point in the story, like the walls of the auto shop and the wall near the boys' dorm, or whatever really. But it does seem in character of Harrington House to try and keep the poor people out. Also near that fountain where you see preppies and greasers conversing at lunch and after class, Russell was supposed to spawn in the middle, but he never does in the final release. So anyway, let's go to the gym now, because all of us do need to hit that place sometimes. There may have been a scrapped area in the gym where Jimmy could have got a haircut, as there are script files called gym-and-barber.lur. It's unknown what hairstyles they were going to be because as far as I'm aware this script is completely busted. There were also going to be more spawn points for jocks who would be seen working out down here as well, more often than just, standing around doing nothing really. Sometimes during classes you can encounter silent versions of Yuri, Bo and Kirby working out, but never outside of class. There's also a promotional screenshot of the gym which did show it having much more props initially. And I find this interesting since these props are only ever really seen in the gym is burning and never again. I wonder why, because I think it makes the gym look much better. But weirdly, if you do no clip outside the gym, you'll see a lot of very weird geometry. I have no idea what this is even supposed to be or even why it's here. So what about the Jock Safehouse? Because, well, Bullwurf Academy is the only place in the game that has 2 safe houses and 3 save points. You know, it has the boys' dorm, it has inside the school itself, and the Jocks Clubhouse. Well, first of all, when you enter the Jock Safehouse, the 2 unused doors you see were actually from an unused version of the Jocks Challenge, where it would be similar to that of the Greasers Townie Challenge, where Jimmy would enter, fight off the Jocks, and then claim the place as his own, and then you can save the game here and whatever. Also around the Jock Safehouse, for some reason there's beta posters of Earnest which actually have his beta name on them, but sadly it's crossed out. Also note this appearance from Earnest is one from Jared Fry's Concepts which put this around 2004 to 2005. So now let's pay a visit to Earnest's Observatory. So despite being locked off until chapter 4, if you do mod your way or glitch your way over here before then, Jimmy can actually kick down the door with his bare fists. After chapter 4 is unlocked and after you've beat Earnest in and the nerd boss fight, the door is indestructible and only destroyed by the Spud Cannon. Interestingly, this still exists in the beta version of Stronghold Assault that can still be played in the game's files, as in that beta version Jimmy was just going to kick the door down with whatever he had in his inventory instead of just, kicking it down with the Spud Cannon. Likewise, if you actually do this, you'll realise that the door you can go through, but it doesn't actually teleport you to the observatory, it just kind of knocks you out. Also, on the way to Earnest's Observatory, there is actually an unused file called Water Puzzle Cam, which would be triggered on Jimmy's way down to the observatory, which is disabled, but if it is re-enabled you get a very unique top-down perspective, a bit like the classic Grand Theft Autos. Now what makes this more interesting is, in a screenshot from the Brady Games strategy guide, the picture for this mission shows us a very different looking radar. So to me this confirms this area was going to be flooded out initially and Jimmy probably had to do something to get past. I don't know if this was going to be for the mission only or if it's something Jimmy would have to do every single time he comes down this route. You know, like hey, when you want to revisit the power plant, you basically have to redo everything you did in Busting in Part 2. Also something that's only used in Stronghold Assault. I swear this is not a beta Stronghold Assault video, but for some reason that mission seems to have a lot of map changes for Earnest Observatory, but yeah. Another thing used in that mission is a very unique interior LOD, which is something never seen anywhere else in the game. Because if you actually sort of no-clip your way into Earnest Observatory in the mission, I don't mean the boss battle arena, I mean the exterior where you kick the door down, you will get a very small, tiny render of the area we fight Earnest in. Now what makes this interesting is no other area in the game does this, because they usually just have like a very sort of flat preview image of what the world looks like outside, not an actual render. And no, there's no collision here either, so yeah. Likewise, one of the earliest names for Earnest Observatory was the Nerd Fortress, as identified by the game files once again. And originally, once you beat the mission defender of the castle, Jimmy could find the deleted Nerd Battle Wagon here, which would be Bully's version of the tanks found in Grand Theft Auto. So, inside the observatory now, and all of the floors are completely solid. Yes, even behind that fence you normally never get behind us. Likewise, during the Earnest boss fight, you can actually sort of mod your way up to the walkway, and it is completely solid. Now some of you might be thinking that's not a surprise, it's supposed to be, but many people realise that in Earnest boss fight, when you sort of knock him down, he does that kind of animation thing, but he runs in thin-air, so, to be honest, I was not expecting it to actually have collision. Also, I'm not sure if this is a mission change specifically, or if it was something that was planned, but if you actually do somehow force Earnest off the Spud Cannon, Jimmy can pick up the Spud Cannon for himself, and there's nothing you can really do with it because Earnest just drops down, but it's still cool to actually see, it's like a POV, you are Earnest or whatever. So let's finish the video off by going to the auto shop, because one of the biggest things about the auto shop is it may not have been Greaser territory at all. The reason I say this is because of Chapter 1's missions. During a few missions like the setup and character sheets, the Greasers are absolutely nowhere to be found around here at all, but the Buddies are. And once these missions end, the Greasers do appear, and that's it really. I wonder if the Greasers had completely different territory initially, and were given this because they had no other turf at the academy. Anyway, other than that, this area doesn't have many beta changes at all, just a few inconsistencies with the interior and exterior, so nothing different to what we've seen so far. Also, if you do actually enter the shop class via modding and sort of no-clip your way out of there, you'll see a duplicate sort of interior. Now, this one is only available in Scholarship Edition, I believe, not sure about Anniversary Edition, but this is from the multiplayer minigame where Jimmy and Gary would sort of take photos and that. It's the mode that nobody ever really played, so I don't blame you if you've never seen this area before. But yeah, that's the end of today's video, so thank you for watching and have a great day.